as well.
Governor Romney didn't need me last night. He did great. And I have seen some of the highlights, and I'm pretty impressed with his performance.
We heard Dan Lothian report just a moment ago from talking sort of about the White House spin, if you will, this morning. They're saying it's not going to shift the race dramatically. Do you agree that sort of one-night performance in a debate to play it up as being a game changer is not correct?
Well, about 90 to 95% of Americans have decided. There's about 5% less, and so nothing really changes dramatically, but you're trying to shift the 4, 5, 6, 7% of the vote that might shift at this point. I think most everybody else is pretty much set on where they're going to go. So you are shooting for a small amount of people, some in the middle. But interestingly, people are always talking about the middle. There's people on both extremes. You remember when Ralph Nader took votes? You know, libertarians take votes. So really, they need to be worried also about the people on either side of the spectrum as well.
So you think it might be more open than just that 5% we always talk about?
It's still a small number. It's still a pretty small number.
You know, Senator, I watch you every day on Capitol Hill trying to get people to give specifics about what they're going to really do to reduce the deficit. And Mitt Romney is not giving specifics on what he's going to do specifically on reforming the tax code.
Right.
Does he need to do that, do a better job of that?
In his defense, what I would say is the tax code is enormously complicated, and so you do have to talk somewhat in generalities. He wants to make the rates lower, he wants to make the tax code simpler, and he is for having less deductions or cuts. But what I would say is that both of them missed last night is this: when everybody's like, can you pay for it, will you add to the debt? He has a general philosophy that he's not going to add to the debt with tax cuts. But another way not to add to the debt, why don't you cut spending? So, I mean, you can make something revenue neutral by cutting spending.
And let's dig into that a little bit more, because you've said you wouldn't vote for any plan, Republican or Democratic plan, that doesn't balance the budget. And what you're certainly, in that specific example, we're nowhere close to enough of a definite plan to be able to.
But it'll be hashed out over many months. Tax reform will be an enormous bill and an enormous package. And what I will say is, when I'm part of the process, you're right, I'm not going to vote for it if it adds trillions of dollars to the deficit. But the way we get it to do it, there's a couple of ways. You can get rid of deductions, which I am for getting rid of deductions. And if there's not enough deductions and you say still it's a good idea to reduce taxes to spur the economy, which I think it is, when the economy grew at 5 and 6% under Reagan, it's because we did significant tax reductions of the upper class. We went from a tax rate of 70 when Reagan came in to 50. Then we went from 50 to 28, and the economy grew like gangbusters. That's what we need again.
Senator, last night President Obama reminded Mitt Romney of what he said in the debates when he said that when asked if you had 10 cuts for one revenue increase, you still wouldn't support that. Isn't that part of the problem when you have Republicans who say, I won't support any type of revenue increase, and you won't even accept 10 cuts to one increase? Right. That makes no sense.
Well, I think everybody says there has to be some sort of compromise, and the narrative is that we won't compromise. I think we actually do compromise all the time. We compromise to raise military spending and to raise domestic welfare spending. What I would say, the compromise is not to raise taxes. The compromise is to reduce military spending and reduce domestic spending. And I think I've got some work even on my side on that, but I think the American public's ready.